Hi guys, so I'm Muskan and this is my first video on YouTube channel. I'm starting a playlist wherein we will be learning the basic concepts about encryption, coding, hashing, or how exactly the communication works between a client and a server. So this video will be just the basic idea about the details and differences between encryption, encoding, and hashing. Then in the later videos we will deep dive into each topic. So without further ado, let's get started. People do confuse a lot about these terms encryption, encoding, and hashing. They are not similar or they are not related to each other, they are quite different. So first of all, I'll start with hashing. Hashing, if few people are from the coding background, you would have used a hashing or a hash map in your coding. Even if you are not from the coding background, then it's completely okay. We will deep dive into it. So first of all, hash map. A hash map basically stores a hash map stores a key value pair. Understand it something like that there is a lock that has a key. Like a lock is useless without a key is useless without a lock. So they are related to each other. That means if to unlock the lock, you need a key. Similarly, if you want to get the value, you need to access a key, but you can't access the key using the value. So it's like a one way process. That means you can fetch the value with the key, but you cannot fetch a key using the value. So similar way in hashing works in like during the communication, or these are the terms used in cryptography. So hashing in the cryptography means a one way process. That is, um, hashing is basically a one way process wherein it's irreversible. What do I mean by irreversible is something which cannot be reversed, reversed as in, see, as I said that in hash map a value can be fetched using the key, but a key cannot be fetched using a value. So similarly, there is some data there is some data that is passed, like a data is passed through some hashing algorithm to get the data as in like the hash. This hash is the encoded data, right? This is the unreadable format, and this is basically used to store passwords or for data transmission, data storage, and everything. That means this data could be of variable size. Some hashing algorithm is used to create a fixed size hash. Now, what do I mean by a one-way processes? This obtained hash could not be passed through the same hashing algorithm to get this original data. So even if an attacker like breaks into your system, gets the hash, or it gets the hash during communication, it's impossible for him or her to decode the hash and gets the original data. So it's like a one-way process and it's quite secure. It is basically, the hashing is basically used for data storage, like during the passwords, right? When we have to store the password with the user to map it, to validate, to authenticate it during the communication, in that case we use hashing. Basically the password is passed through some hashing algorithm and it will generate some fixed size hash, and that could be used to store into the database. So even if the attacker gets the access to your database and gets the hash, it is unable, like it's nearly impossible for him to get the original password. So in that case hashing is used. Also the other benefits are, like other use cases of hashing is face locks or the fingerprints, wherein there are variable size, like people are of different face and everything, and they are passed through certain algorithm to get a single fingerprint or single face lock. So that is the concept of hashing, a one way process, irreversible. Why so? Because we cannot obtain the encoded data, like we cannot decode the encoded data or the hash using any technique. So that is the concept of hashing. Moving to the encoding. Encoding is basically a is two-way process wherein it's like reversible. Why I say reversible, what do I mean saying reversible? Let me change the color so that it would be easier for us to encoding means we have some data, original data, okay, we are passing it through some algorithm, encoding algorithm. Now encoding algorithm are publicly available and they give us some encoded data. This encoded data can be passed again through the same algorithm to get the original data. Understood? So like for example, if I'll show you, there is a base 64 encode and decode. There are common, this is one of the common algorithm which is used to encode the data. So let's say I have some password. This is my password. I'll base 64 encoded. This is what I get as the encoded data. Now if I will pass the same data, I'll decode it using the base 64 decoder. It will give me the same password. So this is the concept of encoding. That means original data, this algorithm, like the only drawback or the con of the encoding is the algorithms are publicly known to everyone. So even if a like hacker or someone gets your encoded data, he can try out different algorithms, and any one of the algorithm can decode that particular data. So it's less secure. Understood? Data is passed from publicly available algorithm to get the encoded data, and that encoded data could be passed through the same algorithm to get the original data. So that is the concept of encoding. It is like less secure, but why it is used? It is used majorly in data transmission or data handling. So it is used with the encryption method to transmit the data from client to server during the request or response communications. So that is a concept of encoding. Now let's come to the encryption. Encryption, again, it's a two-way process. But it's different from encoding. Don't confuse it with encoding. It's also reversible process. It's also a two-way process, but it's different from encoding. Let me change the color for this. Let's take red. Okay. So what do encryption means? Encryption is like a client. There is a client. Please forgive me for my handwriting. There is a client, there is a server. Okay, client sends a request to the server with the username and the password. If we are encoding that username and password and sending over the internet to the server, there is like high chances that an attacker can crack the username and password, like the encoded data from the client to the server, and he or she can easily be able to decode it. But we can't actually, like, this will be a huge security vulnerability during the communication, and we can't afford it. So in that case, the encryption comes into the picture. The client sends the request with the username and password, encrypting it with or encoding it with the secret key. Now secret key is what? The encryption is based on the keys we say, the secret we say, or tokens we say. There are like multiple terms used for the encryption. So these keys are only known to the client and the server. And how do they decide on the secret key? It's during the TCP handshake or TLS handshake. Now this encryption and about the handshakes I'll cover into detail in the next videos. I'm keeping it short and simple just to understand the differences between these three terms. And encryption, there are multiple ways to do so. We will also cover that into detail in the next video. So as of now, just understand that encryption is a basic communication method from a client to server using a secret key. That means if a client is sending a request to the server, it has to be encrypted using with that secret key, and a server can only be able to decrypt or decode that particular request with the same secret key. Now there can be a case and an attacker can also know about the secret key and is able to handle or just is able to break into the communication between the client and the server. So in that case, there is another method for the encryption, that is public private key pair. I'll go into detail of this in the next video. As of now, just understand that encryption is a basic secret key technique in which a request being sent from the client to the server is encrypted using the secret key, and a server responds back to the client encrypting the response again with the secret key, which can only be decrypted again with the secret key. So encryption is all about keys or tokens or a secret which is only known to the client and the server. It is not publicly available. It is reversible, so it can be encrypted and decrypted as well. So I hope you understand the basic differences between these three terms: encoding, encryption, and hashing. Just there is one more thing. Understand the use cases of these three. Hashing is basically used for data integrity and storage as in for the password, if you know, as we discussed. Encryption is majorly used when there is data, when we have to make sure of highly of security, confidentiality, and so Encoding is just basically for data transmission or data handling. Understand? That means if we have to send some data over the internet, we will be encoding the data and we will be encrypting it with certain key. So that is encryption inline on, like, internally uses the encoding to encode the data. Even if like we will encrypt it at all levels, we will be encrypting it with a secret key, then we will be signing the algorithm, digitally signing. We will cover that also in the next video, in like coming videos. And then there is an encoding technique also. So encoding is like far less secure, and it is basically used with other techniques to make it more secure. So basic differences between hashing, encryption, and encoding. Hashing is a one-way method, and it is mainly used for data storage and like integrity. It cannot be reversed back to the original data. Encryption, it is basically majorly based on the keys. That means it can encrypt and decrypt the data or the request and response with the keys. Encoding is like publicly available algorithm is used to encode or decode the data. Understood? So I hope you understand and you like this video. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends if you like it. See you in the next video. Thanks for your time. Goodbye.